Oh, we're live. All right, great. So, thank y'all for being here. I might do this a few times because this goes all the way back. Um, oh, feels great to be here. It's more casual, I think. I would do the things we read at every meeting, but I don't have it. So, caveat emptor. Yes. Don't do radical speeches. The prophet needs finance. Because every evil spirit is moving and they're trying every weak mind to overthrow and drag out the true foundation that has been laid and to cause confusion in the minds of the ones that do believe, because the foundation of this movement is the intelligence of the people. If you remember watching my other class on res judicata, you see that mental competence is everything. So if you want to be a painter, you have to know how to paint. If you want to be a plumber, you have to know how to do plumbing. If you want to be a lawyer, you have to know law. So your mental competence is everything. Which is when you're dealing with the 7 Hermetic principles, the first principle is that the universe is mental. Get it? Right? It's that simple. Everything is so simple. Nature is so simple. We make it complicated. Right? So one of the Moors asked about traveling in the so-called state of Connecticut. Right? I created this document when I think I was about to leave the consulate, and I created this because when I first learned about the Moorish American consulate, I comprehended the issue of diversity. So in the Constitution, it talks about Congress having the right to regulate commerce. But since the 14th Amendment is not constitutional, check the proceedings and debates of the 90th Congress, First Session, Volume 113, Part 12, June 12, 1967, page 15641, and others, you'll see that it was never ratified. So since the 14th Amendment was never ratified, we're not citizens of the United States. So since we're not citizens, Congress can't regulate our commerce. See that? Right? So since a consulate and a consular, when you look up the definition of consular in the law book, it'll say an officer of a commercial character. We already know driving is commerce, right? We already know that the duty of the government is to protect the pre-existing rights of the people, right? And we already know that when these Europeans pull us over, and even if they're not Europeans, even if they look like us, and they got the uniform on, they're working under the laws of the Christian Black Codes of 1724, meaning they got European minds, they're looking for commercial instruments, right? They don't care about your rights. They're commercial enforcers, right? We know this. So I created this commercial instrument that protects your right to travel and your right to drive. So since we're not citizens of each individual state, which are really colonies, all of them have laws dealing with diversity as it relates to driving. So this is what it says in Connecticut. So this is what I wrote, certificate of driver's license. So it's just, a certificate means to prove. So I'm certifying that you have permission to drive. I didn't give you permission. See the difference? I'm certifying that you have the permission to drive. Meaning you gave yourself permission. I'm just like, yep, I witnessed it. Because as a consular, you're an officer of a commercial character. We can only deal with protecting our people's rights in commerce. Because you already have pre-existing rights. We can't even touch that. Right? So what's the point of constantly going over what we already have? Oh yeah, you got rights. All right, cool. Now how are we going to deal with these Europeans? So here's one way to do it. Right? So this is to certify that your name is a Moroccan citizen and national. Because you could be a national and not a citizen of your own free national government. Hence, all these people who think that they're Negro, Black, Colored, Indian, West Indian, Spanish, Ethiopian, Hispanic, African American, Latino, whatever, Latinx, whatever these things are that they're not. They're Moors, but they're not citizens of their free national government because they're not claiming their own nationality. Which once you claim your nationality, that's who you're claiming allegiance to, which says it right in the law book, right? So this is certified that this Moorish American national is permitted to travel, drive, and operate their automobile in the state of Connecticut and is registered with the Court of Morocco pursuant to Connecticut general statutes. Meaning this is what their stuff says, right? Volume 5, Title 14, Motor Vehicles, Use of the Highways by Vehicles, Gasoline, Chapter 246, blah, 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 blah. You can see it. So what we need to pay particular attention to is anything that says non-resident and or alien, right? Non-resident. So the word non means not, right? We already know that. This is a compound word. Non-resident is a compound word, which means two or more words put together. Non means not. Res is Latin and means a thing. This is why they teach you that the Latin language is dead, so you don't study it. Res means a thing. Indent is short for identified. So non-resident means not a thing identified. So we are not things, right? Because we're not property. So of course we wouldn't be identified in their system. Which, when you read the book of Revelations in the Bible, it talks about you won't be able to buy or sell unless you have the name of the beast or the number associated with the name, which is the all capital letters name on the birth certificate and that social security number that's attached to that name. That's the number of the beast. That's how you're identified as objects in their system. So as Moors, we don't have that. So when they type in our names, we're not identified in their system. That's how we're not residents. And we're not citizens of the government, so of course we're not residents, right? Operators. Reciprocity concerning equipment, marketing, and inspection of vehicles. Any non-resident, which we already established, we already fit into that. See how they're already going over the status? Status, jurisdiction, and venue. Status. Any non-resident 16 years of age or older who is licensed to operate a motor vehicle in the state or country. Diversity of citizenship, diversity of nationality, right? Of which he is a resident. Which, when you go to the Grand Sheik, oh yeah, I can identify you. You're a Moor. Yep, I remember. See how that's working? See how I said issue from the court of Morocco, which is a foreign country to the United States, which means they have to recognize this? Yes.
So it says state or country. So
Yep.
when it says state, it means any of the 50 states, supposedly.
Mm-hmm. Or a nation state.
Or nation state.
Or a city state like Rome.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then it says or country, meaning Morocco.
Yeah.
So Morocco can.
So here's the difference.
So Morocco
Here's the
can
difference,
say,
right?
I'm gonna get you. You have the right.
Well, hold on. Morocco can't say anything.
Well, the people.
The people say things. So remember, the land is named after the people, or the people's named after the land. Same. Country means land, right? So wherever we go, that's Morocco.
Okay.
Because we're Moroccans.
Yeah.
Right? So we say, because, all right, a state is a group of people bound together by common law occupying a fixed territory. Meaning this is your state. Look around.
Yeah.
That's your state.
But my question is,
And it's also your country.
with this certificate, we could conduct commerce.
Without the certificate, you can conduct commerce.
Yes.
Yeah,
We can drive.
yeah.
Okay.
Because also, which I'll probably show you later, in Rhode Island general laws, it talks about the same thing, but it talks about if his or her home country doesn't require licenses, you can still operate as a driver in Rhode Island, even if your country doesn't require licenses. So we can all have a national, remember the previous class was about a Moorish National Convention to vote on things like this. So we can vote that, yeah, our people don't need licenses. We can have that and enforce that, but we would need a national constitutional convention for that. But we can vote amongst ourselves and say we don't need this, and then once we speak with like the mayors of the different territories and the governors of the different territories, then we can relay that to them according to your laws. When you see our ID, you see this, don't pull our people over because look at what your laws say. Right? Basically, this is saying you don't need a license from them. The license from your government is sufficient. Then it's saying, oh, look, reciprocity of registration, which means if it's registered with your country, you don't need registration from them. And what did I say in the beginning? Let me just scroll up and see what I wrote in the beginning, because I'm pretty sure I wrote that your automobile is registered with the court of Morocco.
Yes, it is.
So now they're recognizing that, oh, yeah, you need to go to their long-ass line in the DMV and waste your whole day and pay $1 million to reinstate your license and pay monthly registration and insurance and all that crap. You go to me, you pay for a seal, and that's it. And you move on.
In this so-called state of Rhode Island, what they're trying to do now, because the lines are so long, they're trying to charge people $15 just to get in line now.
What?
Yes, just to get in line at the DMV, which that's just another tax. And if you read the Rhode Island Constitution, they can't tax you for any of that stuff.
Article 13, Section 5 of Rhode Island State Constitution says no city or town can levy, and assess taxes.
Apart from Congress, it's supposed to be.
Well, because remember, each state has their own sovereignty, which is what they don't want you to have. They have their own sovereignty, so they have their own right to create their own constitution. You know what I'm saying? As long as it's in adherence to the federal constitution, which it is. Because the General Assembly of Rhode Island, which would be the Congress of Rhode Island, wrote that.
That's why we can have our own constitution as long as it adheres to the federal.
Which John A. Murphy, the city tax collector, I'm sorry.
No, yeah.
Now go ahead, finish, my bad. It's just, sometimes thoughts just happen. Oh, John A. Murphy, the city tax collector of Providence, has been collecting taxes from our people without permission. But guess what? He don't need permission. Because if I say, dear taxpayer, right? Imagine I wrote this in the whatever, mail. Dear taxpayer, you owe Jamal Talibadulabay $700,000 for taxes. And since you don't know law, because you went to my school and I know I didn't teach you crap, they'll be like, oh man, he's calling me a tax collector, and if I don't pay taxes, the IRS is going to lock me up. Then you're just going to agree and then pay me. I didn't put a gun to your head, nothing. I said, dear taxpayer. Right. You know, you agreed.
Everyone's so accompanied to that.
You get what I'm saying? So back to this, right? The reason why this works is because this right here, it's called the Act of State Doctrine. I wrote a lot about this. No, this is the Act of State Doctrine.
Zoom a little bit.
This is dealing with when Cuba nationalized, when Cuba, Fidel Castro, faithful fortress, that's what his name means. When Fidel Castro nationalized Cuba and gave the land back to the Cubans because the Europeans operating under the corporation of the United States was robbing Cuba of her resources and raping their children. So Fidel Castro realized that this is not just a metaphysical battle, this is a physical fight, so we're going to bear arms and fight our oppressor to get them off our land, hence Cuba for Cubans. That's called nationalizing. Then they successfully overthrew the agents of Rome who were acting as Cuban nationals, but they were agents of Rome, meaning they may have looked like they're Cubans and spoke so-called Spanish, but they were under European colonial operations, right? Meaning they had the mindset of, we're going to submit to these people, right? Fidel Castro wasn't having that, strapped his people up. They learned some guerrilla warfare, and they fought for their land. Hashtag fought for their land. They didn't sit down and send paperwork. Anyway, these nationals said some stuff, and this is what the Europeans said. Every sovereign state is bound to respect the independence of every other sovereign state, and the courts of one country will not sit in judgment on the acts of a government of another done within its own territory. Meaning, since the Cubans are home, and we're not Cubans, we're the United States, we can't say anything about what they're doing on their homeland. Because the Cubans nationalized. So now when the Moors nationalize, they'll see Moors traveling in their conveyance or car, doesn't matter what you call it. You can call it a vehicle too, that don't give them jurisdiction. You can call it a motor vehicle, that don't give them jurisdiction. You can drive in your motor vehicle, right, with your fez and your flag, and because of this, they can't even stop you. But since we're not organized, since our people are afraid to bear arms, they just do whatever they want to us. So you see how when the Cubans fought, they were like, oh, we're not afraid of y'all. We'll have guns and we'll die for our land, home, and country. That's what got them their freedom. Not, oh, well, we're Cubans and we have paperwork. Right. You know what I'm saying? So this is the principle upon which that certificate was written, knowing that they're supposed to respect our national sovereignty, right? Because sovereignty doesn't exist on its own. It only exists with the nation. Because if there's 300 policy enforcers in Providence and I'm the only Moor, guess who's winning? Them. Why? Because this is a plane of manifest, where numbers don't lie. Meaning 300 is more than one. You get it? You see how simple this is? It's not complex. It's just technical, right? Yeah. And I have these certificates for Maine, so-called Maine, so-called Rhode Island, so-called Massachusetts, so-called Connecticut, and so-called New York. Because they have these laws in every single state of the European Union. Get that right? Any questions so far?
Not at all.
No questions.
Please, he loves the questions.
Because I can just keep talking about stuff and not really with a topic, just, yeah, no. Yes and no.
What was the question?
He asked,
They're blatantly violating their own laws.
yeah, he asked if they're violating their own laws. So now, yes and no. No, because most of the time we'll give them a license issued by their state, which means they do have jurisdiction. No, because when we buy their cars, it's in the strawman name that they created, that we're doing business as. So we're in violation. Then we register the car with them. Then we get their insurance, and we get their license, and we get their registration. You know what I'm saying? So that's where we're messing up, right? But then when we're in court, and we tell them we're Moors and we're A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and we're challenging jurisdiction and who did what, right? We'll stay in the state level jurisdiction and not file a removal to federal court within the allotted time of 30 days. So now we're in error because we're not doing what we're supposed to do. Because as a national, you would know these states don't have jurisdiction over you. It's federal court because the Constitution is a contract and the word federal means contract. And the treaty is a contract, which the word federal means contract, so you should be in federal court enforcing that Constitution and treaty, which Article 20 and 21 of the treaty state, if any U.S. citizen and any more shall be in controversy whatsoever, I'm paraphrasing, then counsel shall determine, meaning it has to be in consular court. So if you keep arguing challenging jurisdiction in the state level court and you challenge it the first time and it still don't appear on the record and you keep showing up, who's incompetent? And who's wrong? Especially if you say, I'm not straw man, and then you keep showing up as the straw man, who's incompetent? Us. File that removal within 30 days, which the law only requires a brief description of why you're filing the removal. So you would say, as an example, you can literally write what I'm about to say in an affidavit. And I can show you when we get back to the temple where I hand wrote an affidavit on a printer piece of paper, not the one that we wrote the other day, in federal court, went to federal court with my Morse ID, got in the building, hand wrote an affidavit, filed it. You get what I'm saying? It don't got to be all, it has to look, you got to have double spacing. No. You can write on a napkin, you can write an affidavit on a napkin and have the clerk file it, and they have to accept that. So, for a removal on state court, this case law, I can't remember off the top of my head. Actually, I'll just do this. This is one of the affidavits that I use when I help Moors. I'm not going to go over the entire thing because I created it and I have the rights to my intellectual property. And I already know a lot of Moors don't know what they're doing. They'll file an affidavit, it won't work, and they'll say, oh, it's his fault. Right?
Somebody online asked, how can nationals discharge dead pledges? I'm gonna let them know about the
We'll go over that.
mortgage YouTube videos. But
Yeah, so here's an affidavit that I use for Moors. I'm going to skip all that good stuff and go down right here. This is case law that says it only requires that a notice of removal contain a short and plain statement of the grounds of removal. So if you're in state court, you would write on your affidavit, notice of removal, right? That's it. Then you'll say, this removal is being sent to the federal district court for the district of whatever. In Rhode Island, since the European colony of Rhode Island is so small, there's only one district court. Massachusetts is significantly larger, so I think there's 3 district courts. So whatever jurisdiction that they have it set up, that you're in, go to that federal court, figure out which one covers that so-called area. So this is a removal for the federal district court, the United States District Court for the district of whatever. In regards to case number, whatever. State of whatever versus whoever. In the town of whatever. Right? Period. I am a Moorish American national and not a citizen of the United States. Period. In quotations, like they do. See Proceedings and Debates of the 90th Congress, First Session, Volume 113, Part 12, June 12, 1967, page 15641, where it was stated that the 14th Amendment is not constitutional. Period. Since the 14th Amendment is not constitutional, those Moors who are branded Negro, Blacks, and Colors are not citizens of the United States. Period. Since we're not citizens of the United States, the issue of diversity is primal, period. See Article 3, Section 2 of the United States Constitution, period. Since the issue of diversity is primal, and I am part of a separate nation, the treaty is applicable, period. See Article 20 and Article 21 of the Treaty of Peace and Friendship of 1787, period. Send it. Sign it, send it. Now, the reason why you don't have to have 17,000 pages and explain what all this stuff means is because since they're sitting as a so-called judge, they're bound to no law, meaning they're obligated. Right? Because if you're a painter and I hire you to paint this house, you have to know how to paint. Exactly. Right? Good.
I was going to ask you, so the notice of removal, you have to put that in, or you can just fill out the civil cover sheet
No, yeah, you can do that.
and just remove it from state to federal?
Well, if you just fill out the cover sheet without a notice of removal, then it's an original proceeding. That's why at the bottom it'll ask you, is it original proceeding,
Right.
removed, or whatever. Right. Because that's so they can organize how to set it, because they have to assign a judge and a magistrate to the case, They have to organize it. So help them organize your situation to make it easier for you so you can litigate. You know what I'm saying?
Right, but there's a way you can just do it, say if you didn't wanna put the inferior court on notice.
No, you have to.
You have to do it.
It's a courtesy, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. Because remember, we're supposed to be civilized,
right.
you know? So we have to be like, all right, just in case you didn't know European courts, I know you're used to our people being Negro, black, and colored, but I'm not one of them. Hence, Journals of the House of Representatives from 1790, the state records of South Carolina. This is what the Moors did. In 1790. I said the date wrong on the other video with the journalist. I said 1970, but it's 1790. Because the Moors put the European colony on notice that they were Moors. Because there's Moors running around thinking that they're black people, so they had to distinguish themselves from those black people. Because when you claim to be black, you're claiming that the Christian black codes of 1724 apply to you. Right? So this is the 20th day of January, 1790. This is page 363 of the Journals of the House of Representatives. You can get this on Amazon, meaning they don't hide this stuff. Meaning it's your fault for not knowing. And your sellout black leaders for not telling you. And your sellout dirty-ass Indian leaders for not telling you when they know that they're Moors. A petition was presented to the House from sundry free Moors, subjects of the Emperor of Morocco, and residents in this state, praying that in case they should commit any fault amendable to be brought to justice, that they, as subject to a prince in alliance with the United States of America, talking about the treaty that we have, that's our alliance, may be tried under the same laws as citizens of the state, meaning the Constitution, would be liable to be tried, and not under the Negro Act, which was received and read. So they went to the Europeans and told them, you're treating our people as niggers. We're not that, we're Moors. So treat us as such.
Right.
And then if you keep reading, you'll see where they started treating them as Moors, meaning the Negro laws don't apply to them. So when that person asked about how to discharge mortgages, mortgages only apply to people who are slaves, meaning blacks and Indians, because they'll put mortgages on your home and they'll put Indian title on the Indians' houses, both of which are not ownership. Now let me read the Christian black codes just to show you that the Christian black codes of 1724 are still in force today, which is why these Moors had to correct that status, which is why we're trying to have a meeting with the mayor to let them know we're not niggers, right? It's not about being recognized, it's about establishing our status, because we don't need other men to recognize us. We need to make sure that those men don't violate us, because if you do, there's going to be a problem, because we have a treaty of peace and friendship, so if you keep violating that treaty, guess what's going to happen? It's not going to be so civilized, which is what they don't want, and we don't want that either, right? So this is the Christian Black Codes of 1724, which is also online, meaning they don't hide it. Let's read Article 22. And it's in Roman numerals, so 22 is X, X, one line, one line. Article 22. We declare that slaves can have no right to any kind of property. Now,
Slaves can't own property.
but they'll say, be a homeowner and get a mortgage. Okay, let's read mortgage in the law book, which all these attorneys have, all these politicians, all these mayors, all these judges, all these governors, all these congressmen and women, all these presidents, all these secretaries of states, all these general assemblies, all the mayors of the commonwealths and the townships, all these people have this because they're required to know law in order to run civilization. Right? Let's read mortgage.
That sounded like you were a priest in the church.
That's right. Now pass around the collection plate. You know what I'm saying?
Pass it around 2 or 3 times.
They call me Pastor Slickback. You know what I'm saying? And oh look, more. Imagine that. Mortgage. Like the brother said earlier, the word mortgage is a compound word. It's mort, meaning dead, and gauge, as in contract, like mort, like mortuary, mortician, death, right? This is what it says about mortgage in Black's Law Dictionary, 4th edition, which if you so-called domicile in the so-called territory known as Rhode Island, which is really Narragansett. Go to the Rhode Island Superior and Supreme Court, 250 Benefit Street, on the 8th floor, the law library. Ask the clerk for Black's Law Dictionary 4th edition. She'll take you to the right of the clerk's thing. You'll go up the steps, you'll turn left, and you'll see all Black's Law Dictionary except 4th edition. This is what it says. Mortgage. A debt by speciality. Does that sound like ownership? Oh. Secured by a pledging of lands of which the legal ownership is vested in the creditor. So that means the person that gave you the loan, huh? But of which in equity, meaning fairness, the debtor, meaning the person who took the loan, and those claiming under him remain the actual owners until debarred by judicial sentence or their own laches, which laches is your failure to enforce your right of claim. Also, it says, the foregoing definitions are applicable to the common law, common sense, common law, common sense, conception of a mortgage. But in many states in modern times, it is regarded as a mere lien and not as creating a title or estate. How do you own stuff? With the title. Meaning you don't own it. Christian Black Code, 1724. Any person with a mortgage is under the Christian Black Codes, period.
Those are equitable laws.
You get why we're trying to say we're not Negro, blacks, and color, because these laws apply to them? Right? Meanwhile, this is what the Europeans do. This is the governor of Rhode Island. This is her mortgage. Which, pass this around. I know many of you have seen this, but we got some new folks around. Sealed by the recorder of deeds on the 5th floor, room 508, 25 Dorrance Street, Providence City Hall, Mayor George E. Lorza. This is what it says about the governor of Rhode Island. Governor, the supreme executive authority in Rhode Island. Right? I mean, no one's above her. You get it, right? This is what it says about her mortgage. Let me know if you hear the word pay in this. Right? Because in order to, pay a debt, you have to pay it. Let's see if you hear the word pay in this. Or payment. Right? Let's listen. Release of mortgage. Didn't hear it yet. / deed of trust. Didn't hear it. Know all men by these presents that the undersigned for and in consideration of the payment. Now, wait a minute. I heard the word payment. But it says they considered payment. Now, let me try to conceptualize this. All right. Let's say this is my book, which it is. I'll consider that it's being sold on Amazon for about $240. And I'll also consider that you're a Moor and you're my brother. I'll give it to you for free. So I considered the payment. But that don't mean you paid. I'll read that again. The undersigned for and in consideration of the payment of indebtedness secured, meaning the mortgage, and cancellation of all the notes, not money, notes, thereby secured in the sum of $1. Now, how many of us have family? How many of us have family that have a mortgage on their house? How many of us have family who also have a mortgage on their house, and that mortgage is probably like $200,000? How many of them discharge that payment for $1? How many of them are still struggling, living paycheck to paycheck, to so-called pay that so-called mortgage? Is Gina Raimondo doing that?
No.
Oh.
I have a question. Did she use a loafer though?
I don't know.
Unlawful value.
The receipt whereof is hereby acknowledged and does hereby release, remit, satisfy, convey, and quit claim onto Andrew K. Moffett and Gina Raimondo, tenants by the entirety. And if you look up her address, 525 Elm Grove, ELMGROVE Avenue, Providence, Rhode Island, 02906, you see that her beautiful home is worth $780,000.
Give me that address.
She paid $1 for it. 525 Elm Grove Ave, Providence, Rhode Island. Beautiful home, $760,000.
Oh, wow.
Look how beautiful that is, right?
It's a really big house.
Multiple bedrooms.
Oh, wow. Right on the corner.
And so she's just living,
It's accessible.
she's living comfortably.
Someone just asked if she's a her proper person. No, because she thinks.
Oh, no, hold on, no. Hold on. Remember, white is a status. So if you're competent, you're white. White represents knowledge. When you look at a light, it looks white because it's bright. Light represents knowledge. If you're bright, you're intelligent, you're using your intelligence, so she can act like she's white. If you want to be black, she can be the opposite and be white. Since you won't exercise your birthright as a Moor because you want to live in the projects and you think gangbanging is cool, and then if you don't believe in that, then you go to their Christian church because you think you're a Christian because the Christian black codes force you to think that you're Christian, then they can do whatever the hell they want because you're abandoning your right. So don't blame them. She knows she's a European. She looks like the Wicked Witch of the West. She knows what she looks like every day. She know how she's styling her hair every day. But that don't matter. Why? Because she's the governor. She's not struggling like us. So why would the first question be, is she in her proper person? Why is your first question not, how do we do that? That should be your first question.
I want to interject real quick.
That's how we can do that.
That's what I
Actually,
really
the estimate for her house is actually 830.
Oh, and it went up.
It must have got reassessed,
So-
Yeah, it went up.
She's
Oh, yeah, pass this around. Look, you'll see the seal. It has a book number, page number from the Recorder of Deeds. Not my document. It's the Recorder of Deeds. Pass that around. Take pictures, show your friends. Oh, yeah, here's a receipt that I paid for it with notes.
No.
If you don't have Black's Law Dictionary 4th edition, you can download a free PDF on riseofthewarrant.org.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Any other questions?
If anyone wants it, I have all 8.
Really?
I have all 8 here. I give it out.
I didn't bring my laptop.
Yeah, I got 1 through 7.
So, if you don't have this book, I suggest you get this book. It's called Ancient and Modern Britons. There's 2 volumes by David McRitchie. In the back is very interesting. Let's see if I could find it. Ah, found it. Look at that. On page 374, this is what it says. The Englishmen who had colonized the western shores of the Atlantic, what are they talking about? Here. Not more than a generation or 2 before Gross spoke of the Indians there as being as black as gypsies. In 1676, the native races of New England, where we at? So-called New England, right? Which this ain't New England, but that's what they call it. This is not England, just so you know. Were spoken of indifferently as Indians and Moors. What else we got over here? Ancient Mystic Oriental Masonry by R. Swinburne Claimer. That don't sound like no Asiatic to me. Swinburne. Let's see what this European has to say about you. Oh, look, I'll just read this real fast. Page 16. No civilization known to man has ever risen to any great heights or long maintained its supremacy that debased women. So if we continue to debase our women, we'll never be anywhere. That's what that means. But this part is what I wanted to read. It starts on page 25, but I will read page 27. Prehistoric America was the original Egypt. Any questions?
Wow.
Want me to read it again slower? Prehistoric America was the original Egypt,
Standing on Africa.
or Eagle Land, prior to the mighty dispensation in the days of Peleg, when the earth was divided and the great globe itself nearly rent asunder. Meaning, before North America and South America was detached from Europe and Africa, or what they call Africa, it was one continent. And over here was older. Then an earthquake happened, and the continent shifted. Meaning over here is still older. We just moved. Get it? So the Indians are called Moors. That's what they said, right?
Right.
And America's really Egypt. I wonder what this book has to say. Stolen Legacy
Boring.
by George G.M. James.
This is so boring.
Greek philosophy is stolen Egyptian philosophy. Now, I'm making a connection. I don't care if you think it's boring or not, but I'm making a connection that's about to show you that the Moors are from Egypt. And here is Egypt. So, yes, we are Egyptian.
And not only that, you mentioned Greek, so when you study etymology, you see Greek languages and things like that, you know that it also came from us.
This is my grandfather's book.
Like Alpha, Omega.
He let me, quote unquote, borrow it, and I adverse possessed it.
No, adverse use.
Yeah, adverse use. Yeah.
It says stolen.
Guilty.
Hey! It's adverse possession, Your Honor.
Let's just turn this into
Set
a
him a
court
quick
real
claim.
quick. A court of your peers.
Totally.
We're about to try.
I'm over here sweating now. I should have never said nothing. I plead the fifth. I incriminated myself. That's what I get, huh? I'm going to find it. Don't worry. I always find it. I should have highlighted it. But I had all the intentions on returning this back to my grandfather, so I didn't highlight it. Meaning I didn't steal it. Oh, look at this.
George James?
George G.M. James. I'll read this part.
And just to clarify, the book is really good. It's just a lot of data, a lot of dates.
During the Persian, Greek, and Roman invasions, large numbers of Egyptians fled not only to the desert and mountain regions, but also to adjacent lands in Africa, Arabia, and Asia Minor. That don't say Middle East. That says Asia Minor, where they lived and secretly developed the teachings which belonged to their mystery system. In the 8th century AD, the Moors, i.e. natives of Mauritania in North Africa, invaded Spain and took with them the Egyptian culture which they had preserved. Now, wait a minute. If this book says that Indians are Moors, and this book says America is Egypt, and this book says the Moors took the knowledge of Egypt and brought it into Spain, that means we came from here, went to Europe, and taught the Europeans how to bathe. Oh, wait, they ain't done. As such, the people of North Africa were the neighbors of the Egyptians. And became the custodians of Egyptian culture. Which they spread through considerable portions of Africa, Asia Minor, and Europe. During their occupation of Spain, the Moors displayed with considerable credit the grandeur of African culture and civilization. The schools and libraries which they established became famous throughout the medieval world. Science and learning were cultivated and taught. The schools of Cordova, Toledo, Seville, and Saragossa attained much celebrity that they, like their parent Egypt, attracted students from all parts of the Western world, and from them arose the most famous African professors that the world has ever known in medicine, surgery, astronomy, and mathematics. But these people from North Africa did more than merely distinguish themselves in Spain. They were really the recognized custodians of African culture to whom the world looked for enlightenment. This is your history. In addition, the Moors kept up constant contact with Mother Egypt. Do we see the connection?
Definitely.
Are we sure? It's not complex, is it?
No, it's not at all.
See what happens when you do a comparative analysis? You compare what these different books said, and you analyze them. It's that simple. Any questions?
Maybe now the people who are sending paperwork will realize this is actually their land.
Yeah,
I think a lot of them,
that was the point.
they're not aware that this is your land, you actually have to do stuff.
Yeah, so the point of that was you weren't shipped from anywhere. You were already here. So since this is your land, and these colonies are European colonies, and you're not European, if the governor can discharge her mortgage, what can you do?
Not even have
Claim
to
Not
the
even that. You just walk on the land and it's yours.
There you go.
That's it. And you're out of courtesy writing or drafting a notice to put them on notice. Out
Yeah.
of courtesy.
Yep.
That's it.
That's it.
Class is over. You know more. You know more science now.
No, but you was reading Stolen Legacy, and one thing you said was that in North Africa they kept the teachings from Egypt.
Yeah, that's because the
Yeah.
Europeans were invading.
But most people would be like, huh? See, if you look at it on the map, North Africa's here, and Egypt's there,
Mhm.
over there, the
Yeah.
map that they use. So it would confuse people who don't know the sun.
Yeah,
Whereas now us getting here, you switching.
yeah. They came from North America,
Yes.
which is Egypt, to there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there's a book actually that I was reading,
Queen Mu.
yeah, the Queen Bee book, that talks all about, it's written by a European lady, and she says there, all of the historians and archaeologists, she doesn't understand why they're lying. She doesn't understand why they, every time, especially she was a woman at this time writing about this information, and all the archaeologists and geologists and those types of people, those professionals, were all males. And now there's a female like blowing the cover. Why are you lying about this? Why are you, because she was a geologist. So when you study like the rocks and you can see like the ages and time differences, and she was noticing that they were covering stuff up and they were lying about the time, lying about the pyramids here, and it even says in there, everybody knows that America was the first civilization, like the first cradle of civilization, and since there's so many pyramids here, it's a really good book. Sorry.
So if you don't know that this is your land, and you try to do an adverse possession, your adverse possession or quitclaim has to be rooted in something. Your claim has to be rooted in something. So your claim is rooted in your ancestry, meaning this is your land. Because when you study that, just that portion of history, that means we were here first. Then when you study the origins of the United States of America, the various European colonies, you'll see that, which I talk about in my fourth book, every time that there was an establishment of a European colony, that European nation, whether it be British, the Dutch or Netherlands, the Spaniards or the French, they had a treaty with the Moors. As an example, Jamestown, Virginia, 1607, when James I became king after the Treaty of London, 1603, he spoke with the Sultan of Morocco, Moulay Muhammad, to continue the negotiations that Queen Elizabeth started with the Sultan Zayed to free Europeans in Morocco. Right? Now think about that. The European spoke to the Sultan of Morocco to free Europeans in Morocco. Then, after that negotiation was made, here in America, the first free colony. So where's Morocco?
Right here.
Which in this book, it said the Moors are natives of Mauritania. What's the ancient name of Morocco? Mauritania.
Which actually, if you listen to it, Mauritanian,
More.
Borinquen,
Yep.
Kikeya,
Right.
all those
And
languages.
in Boricain, isn't there a castle called El Moro?
El Moro, yeah.
And in Cuba, isn't there a castle called El Moro?
Yep. Colombia.
And in Colombia, isn't there a castle called El Moro? And in Colombia, isn't there a place called Cartagena, Carthage? And wasn't Colombia called New Granada?
Yep.
And aren't the Moors known for Granada?
Yes.
Lift your feet up. Lift your feet up. You standing right on it.
So you're standing on Morocco. You're standing on Africa.
Can you just
They had to teach you that Africa's somewhere else, so you get out of your mind. You start looking over there. Meanwhile, they're administrating the land of milk and honey. That's why everyone wants to come here. Yes.
do you want to just explain a little bit and give the Rhode Island archaeologists from
Oh, his
India and-
yeah, his name, the professor from the University of Rhode Island that found ancient Quranic manuscripts that predate Christopher Columbus by 900 years. His name is Ivan Yurisko. He wrote the article that's saying Muslims have been here before Columbus. Then the Prime Minister of Turkey, Recep Erdogan, I'm not sure how to say his name, he revealed to Latin America, the Muslims of Latin America, that Muslims have been in America prior to Christopher Columbus by at least 500 years. So now that's because remember, Turkey is Istanbul, which is really Constantinople, which is really Phrygia. And then when you look at the Colombian coat of arms, the Cuban coat of arms, the Haitian coat of arms, they all have the Phrygian cap on their coat of arms. Phrygia, Phrygian cap. Muslims, Turkey, Ottoman Empire, Moorish Empire. See the connection? It's just we're the Moors who forgot who we were due to European colonization of our land, so we don't know how to make that connection because we're looking for black stuff in history. We're looking for Indian stuff in history. We're looking for colored stuff in history, not Moroccan, which is why in the one-on-ones the prophet said, what's the ancient name for Moor? Moabite. That was the answer. What's the modern name for Moor? Moroccan. Why? So you look up your Moroccan history because you're Moors. So when you say Moorish American or Moroccan American, it's the same thing. You know what I'm saying? I know it's a lot, but it's all connected, and you'll start to see that. The more you listen, the more you read, and the more you apply it, and the more you just see what's in front of you. Because you'll see plants here, and you'll relate to those plants, and you'll realize you're American. Because I used to see jungle plants. I'm like, why does this look like a jungle here? Why are these plants, why is there a fern here? That belongs in the jungle. This is the jungle.
No, seriously.
You know what I'm saying? Look at the plants.
Just because they cut down the trees and put
Yeah,
the
and put
houses
cities,
up.
yeah. No, this
We
is,
always told you, you can take the cat out of the jungle, but you can't take
the jungle out of the cat.
Makes sense?
Mhm.
Makes sense. Whole lot of sense now.
Right.
All you gotta do is listen to
You don't
yourself.
fall out now.
Listen to what you see, and you'll see it. Listen to what you see. Listen to what you see, and you'll see it.
Look at what we encountered yesterday in territory of Rhode Island. We ran into all the bamboo.
Hmm. But what about the Turk's head?
Right. Right. It's on the phone. I checked that.
See?
That's right.
In the
Um,
building that was erected, 1913.
Mhm.
Same year.
They tell you what's up. They already know what's up. Everybody knows what's up except for us.
Right.
It doesn't benefit them for us to know what's up. That's why it would behoove us to know what's up. Any other questions? Because I'd rather be specific. Because I could talk about a bunch of
Did
stuff.
you go over the Pangea thing just for the?
Oh yes, I talk about this in my second book. There's a professor from the University of Florida that talked about Pangea, which was when all the continents were connected, dating to about 250 million years ago. 250 million years ago. And this book talked about how ancient America, prior to the earthquakes, is Egypt. And this talks about how the Moors were in Egypt. So that means we existed to at least 250 years ago, according to that professor from the University of Florida. And they admit that the plates under Georgia and Florida are Northwest African plates, which tells you North America is Northwest Africa, because if North America is touching African soil, then North America must be Africa. Because if you're stepping on African soil, where does that mean you're at? And if you look underwater, what's under the water? Land.
So you said it predates 250 million years?
The professor from the University of Florida dates Pangea
Okay.
250 million years ago.
And we walked Pangea at that time, right?
That's what these books say.
Okay. Which they try to distort history.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to
Yeah.
get to a point because they tell us dinosaurs
Now,
was here 65 million
let's talk about that. Let's talk about that.
to get us away.
Let's talk about that. Oh, let's talk about that.
Get away.
Because the prophet in the Holy Quran talks about how the ancient name of Africa is a Mexem. And he talks about prior, when the Atlantic was a river, that's when we crossed over, which we were talking about Hebrew Israelite earlier. I forgot who I was talking with. Yeah. And then in the oral statements by the prophet, now remember, the oral statements by the prophet is considered hearsay. But this is what he said. I'm about to paraphrase. He said, when the wild beasts were roaming the earth, it was the Moors that slayed them so civilization could prosper. Because if a meteor hit to kill the dinosaurs, everything would have been gone.
Yep.
Now, if they were hunted, then obviously only they would be gone. If they were hunted.
Yep.
Now, to me, I rather believe that my ancestors slayed these wild beasts because that makes them gods. And if I'm a descendant of them, that makes me a god.
But then if you ask me, it's only mammals.
Yeah.
Beasts are they talking about. I don't think it was these skeletons that they have now
Yeah.
that they pulled up less than 100 years ago.
So me, I would, like when I read that the prophet said that, I was like, okay, I will accept that for value, but I'm not going to go do research onto that or into that. Because meanwhile, the governor's doing this, not struggling. I don't have time to be looking at dinosaurs because my family's struggling.
That's what I'm saying. They
And I don't
put
got time,
history out
yeah.
to distort it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So they'll just pile a bunch of information,
Yeah.
knowing that you got to look through it, and you can't look through all of it. So again, they'll have you distracted on something that don't matter. Like back in the day, the Moors were 7'7". All right, cool. Well, what about today? Because my family's struggling. So what's up with these civics? That's why I ask if any of you have questions, so you can draw out the answer. Because I have the information. You just got to draw it out. Because I can talk about this all day, but that doesn't mean you're getting what you need to hear unless you ask the question. You know. So any questions?
Let's go back to drama.
Back to driving. All right. So remember,
No one has questions.
the certificate was dealing with our right to not have licenses by their states, right? And I was telling you why that works is because, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Should we stick with the legal terms, driving?
Well, it depends. It depends. Because some Moors drive. You know, there's nothing wrong with driving.
That's commercial.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with commerce. Remember, the Treaty of Peace and Friendship is also known as the Treaty of Amity and Commerce, which means it's the highest commercial document on this land as it pertains to us. And in said Treaty of Peace and Friendship, also known as Amity and Commerce, it states that we recognize the United States as any other favored nation. So we're recognizing them, right? And since we're recognizing them on a commercial level, that means we have a separate jurisdiction as it relates to commerce. So if you're driving as a Moor, there's nothing wrong with that. You know what I'm saying? That's why that certificate was created for Moors, because you can do commerce and you have the right to travel. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not giving you permission to do it. I'm just giving you something that they're looking for so they don't harm you, because that's my job. You know what I'm saying?
So in other words,
Makes
if you
sense.
got a plumbing truck,
Right.
you know what I'm saying? No plates. You don't need anything to justify you traveling or even driving to conduct business.
Yeah.
You understand? But what this does is pretty much you put that on your window or whatever, and that's just you put them on notice.
Security.
Yes.
That's it.
You can't say you didn't see that sign on the back of my vehicle, automobile conveyance.
Because
That asserted my rights.
remember, when they say you need licenses and shit like that, stuff like that, they're enforcing the Christian black codes. When you read this, you'll see blacks can't do anything without permission from their masters. The definition of license is permission. That's all that is Christian black codes. So I'll give you your free man papers, like back in the day, free man papers, your certificate of driver's license from your country, show it to these policy enforcers, leave me alone, diversity of citizenship, carry on with your life. And if they don't let you carry on with your life, then you sue their pants off. Which is what the prophet said, enforce the Constitution. And he also stated in the divine warning by the prophet for the nations that they placed their trust upon issues formed by their forefathers, which they're talking about the treaty. So he's telling you to enforce the Constitution in the treaty that your ancestors created with their ancestors, so as to ensure peace amongst each other, right? Which if you search my documents, case number 19-1198 in the First Circuit in Boston, you'll see where I wrote in the affidavit, since they're trying to unlawfully foreclose on my mother's house, which is really estate embezzlement, I told them we are handling this. I'm handling this on the judicial level to keep things civilized. If you refuse to recognize the treaty that we have and the laws that are already established, then you're forcing me to be uncivilized, right? Because that's what that is. Because if I have an agreement that we're going to be cool and you keep doing stuff that's not cool, well, then now I have to react because I'm part of nature and nature will defend itself. That's why when you look at concrete and you see trees busting up that concrete, because nature don't submit to nobody except for nature. That's why in Cruden versus Neal says all men are independent of all laws except those prescribed by nature. He's not bound by any institutions formed by his fellow men without his consent. So now I'm telling you, you're either going to handle this civilized or we're going to have to violate that peace and friendship treaty, which you do not want, because this is my homeland and we outnumber you and you know it. That's why you're doing so much to suppress our people. Now, dare me to wake them up.
And to what he just said, you know, and they'll tell you, these politicians will tell you, oh, the longest standing treaty that has not been violated, why hasn't it been violated? Because the Moors don't know. Because if all the Moors knew,
We'd be up
they
in
would not
arms.
be giving press conference saying it's the longest standing treaty that has not been violated. They ragged that treaty. If you, in my opinion, to this day, they still don't. They just walk all over it like it's nothing until a few Moors.
Oh, let me show you that.
Until a few Moors.
Let me show you the enforcement of the treaty right here. This Moor, which he knows that Moor, this Moor. He knows this Moor. Not you, him. This Moor, I'm not going to say his name, but this is the docket from New Hampshire with their seal on it. I'm hiding his name for a reason, although it's public record, so you can look it up. I'm going to read some of the counts or some of the offenses.
If you get a chance, we do have some questions in the chat.
Okay, great. This is the State of New Hampshire Judicial Branch Superior Court. Offenses: second-degree assault with a deadly weapon, first-degree assault with a deadly weapon, first-degree assault with a deadly weapon, first-degree assault with a deadly weapon, second-degree assault with a deadly weapon, second-degree assault with a deadly weapon. Those are all the offenses. And at the end, you'll see that they no longer prosecuted this case. They call it nolle processed or nolle prosecute, which means no longer going to prosecute, meaning they dropped the charges. This is what I sent to them. It has my name. At the time, I was part of the consulate, so it has the Moorish American consulate, but they didn't have anything to do with this. This was all, I created this document. I actually told them that I'm doing writ of prohibitios, we should all do this. And anyway, it didn't happen. But when I did it, it worked. This says, Assalamu alaikum, greetings of peace from the Moorish nation. In regards to the Moorish American national, his free national name, you are in violation of the American Constitution of 1791, Article 3 and Article 6. Free national name, the Moor, is not a citizen of the United States Corporation as defined in the United States Code, Title 28, Chapter 6, Subchapter 176, Subsection 3002, Number 15A, nor a citizen of New Hampshire. So I already dealt with status and jurisdiction, right? Considering the Moor, distinguished from and not to be identified as straw man, is not one of your citizens nor residents, diversity is the primal issue at law. You are hereby ordered, not requested, not sending no motions, this is an order. Because remember, this is my land, so I'm issuing orders because it's my land, right? Which is how you should be thinking. Hereby ordered to produce your written delegation of authority given to your office from the unincorporated body politic known as Congress for the United States of America, per Article 1 and Article 3 of the Constitution, whereby they have given you lawful authority to adjudicate in matters of diversity of citizenship, which is Article 3, and per the United States Code, Title 28, Part 4, Chapter 85, Subsection 1332, diversity of citizenship. Excuse me. Only United States district courts shall have original jurisdiction in all civil actions where the matter and controversy is between 1, citizens of different states, 2, citizens of a state and citizens or subjects of a foreign state, etc., or etc. Right? So I'm telling you what the jurisdiction is. Right? Failure to produce your authority within 16 days, which you can give them 2 days, you can give them 5 days, you can give them 3 days. Because if I tell you I'm a veteran of the United States Marine Corps, I should be able to go home and get you my DD-214, and it shouldn't take me a month to do it, right? So it shouldn't take them a month or 30 days or more than 2 days to get a delegation of authority that they're supposed to have in the court,
On file, on record for everybody.
right? I gave them 16 days because 6 plus 1 is 7. Right? If you don't do this within 16 days, it will result in a default judgment, whereas the alleged docket number, I cite the case number, will be ipso facto, which means by mere fact, and ipso juris means by mere operation of law, dismissed for want of jurisdiction. The word want means to lack. So in the Bible where it says the want of love is evil, that means the lack of love is evil. So if you want jurisdiction, that means you lack it, which dealing with our people, when we say we want rights, we're making a statement. That's it. We're not saying we desire anything. We're just saying we lack something. So it means nothing. All right, cool. Right? Any attempt to adjudicate on your part, agent, agency, or principle is void of law and subject to the United States Code, Title 18, subsection 241 and 242, and Title 18, subsection 2381, et alia, which means and others. Diversity of citizenship exists if at least one party adverse to another party in a civil or criminal action does not share the same citizenship with the other adverse party, which is why they had to teach us that the 14th Amendment was constitutional, so there is no diversity, so we submit to them. See how this is playing out? If the state of New Hampshire, in all caps, has an issue with the Moorish American national, his free national name, distinguished from and not to be identified as, nor held as surety for, straw man, Moorish American consuls must be present per the American Constitution, Article 3 and 6, which includes the Treaty of Peace and Friendship 1786/1787 between the Moorish/Moroccan Empire and the colonial United States of America, to include the treaty with Algiers, Tunis, and Tripoli. The proper jurisdiction and venue for diversity of citizenship is consular court. Which, just because I'm not part of the consular court doesn't change that. That's still the truth. If one of your citizens has an issue or controversy in fact or in law, i.e. the state of New Hampshire, considering corporations are considered citizens within the state they were created, per your codes, the United States District Court for the District of New Hampshire has jurisdiction on your part, and our consular court has jurisdiction on our part. Then we go to court and we litigate. Right? If you desire to pursue this issue against the Moorish American national, their free national name, Moorish consuls must be present, meaning that's a requirement. Then and only then is the jurisdiction and venue proper within the United States District Court for the District of New Hampshire. Consular at the time, Sharon Tracy Gale Bay, Regional Counsel for Northeast America, can be contacted in regards to this matter. Then I put her email and phone number. I can also be contacted and have my phone number listed, issued by my hand and seal on the 26th day of June, 2018, signed by me. Courtesy copy sent to the Governor of New Hampshire, the Attorney General of New Hampshire, the Chief Judge of the United States District Court for New Hampshire, Jeff Sessions, who is acting as the Attorney General for the United States, and a copy was sent to Sharon at the time. And the case was dismissed. Diversity of citizenship, personam jurisdiction, proof right in your face. What more do you want? Proof's in the pudding. Check the docket. Don't believe me. Look it up. Take pictures. Show your friends.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
Now, I'll tell you straight up. It wasn't just those words that made this get dismissed. It was the Moor's resilience and his willingness to fight, and the Moors around him standing with him and encouraging him to not give up. That's nationality. That's principles of nationality. That's principles of nationhood. That's the prophet telling you to honor chapter 25 when your brother is in adversity, assist him. Meaning us standing together is what makes us free. So when that person asks, how do we discharge mortgages? Let's stand together, demand a meeting with the governor, and be like, yo, if you did this, we're doing it too. Any questions? No? All right, cool. Then we get out of poverty. Not asking, not requesting, excuse me, Mayor, I'm a citizen of Rhode Island, and thank God you're the governor, and you're so whatever. Nah. We're not asking you for nothing. We're telling you this is what it is. Any questions? We'll clarify it for you. Just like we did with the journalist, we clarified her questions. We weren't hostile, we were very peaceful, we were just assertive. We're not black, we're not sovereign citizens. Any questions? Go ahead.
So suppose you have a family member that's incarcerated, does this apply to him?
Of course. This case law is stating that jurisdiction can be challenged at any moment. Any moment. Meaning if they're dead, you can challenge jurisdiction. Meaning you can sue as an estate. If you have a family member who died in jail and you want to sue because they were unlawfully in prison and the United States had no jurisdiction, so it was a mistrial, or etc. You can sue as an estate because you're part and parcel of the ground. That's why your feet never get off the ground. And if they are off the ground, you're attached to something that's on the ground, meaning you're not separate. You can sue as an estate and get reimbursed. If you don't believe me, get my Trust Law 102 class, and I go over that where there was a case where it was a deceased person and their heirs sued as an estate, as trustees over the estate. Part and parcel, L, your title of nobility, parcel, land. More means land. You're a Moor. You navigate the land and the sea. Moor means to tie a rope to anchor a ship on the sea. You're 70% water. Water exists in 3 stages: gas, solid, and liquid. You're the mixture of that. That's why you breathe gas. And this is solid. You have liquids running through your body. It's called blood. Meaning you're the universe. So yes, you can challenge jurisdiction at any moment. Sorry, go ahead.
No, piggybacking off what he said. So,
Camelbacking.
yeah, camelback.
Because we ride camels, not pigs. Which camels are indigenous to North America? Go ahead.
What if that person is not nationalized yet? You can still challenge it, or?
Of course. Even if they're not nationalized, guess what? The 14th Amendment was never ratified. So even if they think that they're black, blacks were taught that they became citizens of the United States because of the 14th Amendment, so he can still challenge that. Because once he challenges that, they would have to say, well,